Hi, I'm Reverend Elizabeth Howell, and this is Psychic Sushi. And today we have a special guest, LewisCharles, who's written a book, Helping Ghosts. And Lewis is going to talk to us about hauntings, ghost investigations, and how to help ghosts. And welcome, LewisCharles. Thank you so much for being on my show today. And we have a wonderful studio audience that came, and there are lots of curious people. Now, you are the author of the book Helping Ghosts, A Guide to Understanding Lost Spirits. And I really think that this is a fantastic title, Helping Ghosts. And you are a professional, or what we say, you're a ghost investigator, as well as you specialize in rescuing, correct?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Explain what you do exactly so people will know.
Well, I wear quite a few hats. Helping Ghosts sort of came out of my experiments, my adventures, my explorations in trying to understand what happens to us when we die, what happens to some. In other words, what are ghosts? Why are they here? Why are they haunting? Field experiments, working on investigations in order to help the ghost move on and solve the haunting. And then the book also is about how those that want to ghost investigate, how they can learn to communicate with ghosts in order to help them, or if you have a haunting, you know, how you can work to solve your haunting.
Okay, so this is kind of a self-help book in the respect that you talk to people and help them, or the book will help them, let's say they do have a haunting, how to get that spirit to move on.
Right.
Okay. Well, we talked a bit earlier, and we both are of the same opinion. I work as a psychic medium, and also I'm a spiritualist minister, and I have my own church. And my point, and the one thing I love to do, is help someone move on. A spirit that may be trapped or a true haunting. And we try to get that spirit into the light. And we feel that nothing should be left behind. No one should be left behind. And it sounds like you're doing a lot of great work with that as far as rescuing and getting someone to move on into the light. You know, we talked, there are a lot of wonderful TV shows that are on now with paranormal investigations, and we all see them, right? And it seems like people get very much involved in it, and they say, hey, I can do that too, and they get out there and they want to, let's say they, amateurs, a lot of more amateurs are getting involved now. But the point that I think that you make, and you make it in your book, is that, okay, we establish there's a haunting, but then what do we do about that spirit? Because that is someone. That's someone's relative, right? And we want to get them into the light.
Sure. It's, ghosts are people, and if I could convey anything, that was probably the first goal, the first nugget that I wanted people, readers, to take away from the book, that ghosts are people. They're no different than you or I, except that they're disembodied. You know, it's wonderful what ghost investigation television shows have done. They've brought an awareness to the public that there may be something more beyond the physical realm. And that's always been a goal of mine in the books that I've written and websites, is really just to try to awaken people to the idea that there may be something more beyond what their eyes can see. But as you alluded to, there are many ghost investigation groups. I think in Ohio there are over 500 right now, 500 or 600. It's crazy. And to that, people are going out there, they're emulating or following the what ghost investigators are doing on TV, and it's all about make my lights on my EMF meter trip, or you know, give me some type of sound, and ghosts lose the human side. They become its, or you know, we treat them almost like they're monstrous or something.
Or an entertainment.
Entertainment.
You know, just an entertainment being or something, and you take away the humanity aspect.
Yes.
And I think that's a very valid point.
Fear.
Yeah. I know that, now you got started in this, you said in 2002. Can you tell everyone in the audience about how you got started with this?
Oh, well, ghosts started. The idea of understanding ghosts and lost spirits started back in probably just a little bit before that. By 2002, I started hearing about them and started writing my ideas down. But I would really have to go back to 1996 and an experience that I had then. At that time in my life, I was very much a fundamentalist Christian, meaning that I just saw that people, when they died, they were either in a place called heaven or a place called hell. So there was nowhere in between. And with that way of thinking that I had, the idea of a ghost was impossible, improbable, because a person, when they die, would have to be either over here or over there. But something happened to me. I mean, I was a religious leader in our church. I wasn't just a deacon or a Sunday school teacher. I eventually ended up being an elder and chairing an eldership in a Christian church. And so I was trying to help direct this church, and the whole time I was just looking for one thing. What's the truth? What is God's will? And I was at home one day, and I had this presence that just came upon me. Never experienced anything like that, was not aware that you could feel a tangible presence, a spirit presence, and it just blew me away. And I don't believe it was a ghost. This presence was very loving, very joyful, very peaceful, and really stayed with me strongly for about a week. And it was during that time that I noticed that if I quieted my mind, I could hear deep down in my heart, like a knowing, a voice coming from this presence. And it was ever loving, and it was the opposite of fear, if you will. It was removing my fearful ideas, my fearful interpretations of who I am, where am I going, what's life about. Yeah. And so by following that, my fears are undone. And eventually that voice that, getting back to 2002 now, I was following that voice deep inside through meditation, quieting the mind, listening inside, and they started talking to me about ghosts and spirits.
Oh. So then you got onto the path of investigation and gathering scientific information.
Well, my thinking at the time was I could form a ghost investigation group, and I could go out and I could investigate hauntings or try to find ghosts. But I thought there was such a wealth of information out there from people that have had ghost experiences. They may have a photograph, they may have an audio recording, a video, a ghost story. And so I began a website in 2004 called angelsghosts.com. It's Angels and Ghosts. And the idea was to receive submissions from around the world of ghosts and spirits, post that information, and allow the visitors to the website to view it for themselves and make up their own mind. At the same time, what I was doing was looking at it, trying to find a common thread. Why do ghosts haunt? What do they want? What can we do to help them? Right. By 2007, I began working on ghost communication, and then by 2008, taking that out into the field, what I had learned through the experiments, etc., and trying to actually solve cases of haunting. I wanted to be brought in by ghost investigation groups and work on the most difficult cases to try to communicate and help the ghost. And the idea being, if you help the ghost, then you solve the haunting. There should no longer be a haunting.
I do some investigations, but I'm not saying I'm a haunting expert per se. I do work with other different teams. Now, you work mostly with a certain team, Site
of Ohio, out of Akron.
Of Akron. And we actually, in previous shows, we have gone to the Kent stage, and you were actually at the Kent stage, and we didn't film you at that time, but you were at the Kent stage in the fall, and you did a great presentation. So we're really excited to have you come back on today.
Awesome.
Yeah. Now, you brought with us some goodies. We have some pictures and we have some audio, but we're going to talk, I can ask you a few questions, or maybe you can enlighten us or the audience about some of the ghost talk box thing, the audio that you're getting, the electronic voice phenomenon, as well as, since you collect a lot of different things on the website, and I really suggest go to this website because it's fantastic. And it is from all over the world. You collect pictures from, like, everyone submits to hit this, and it's really fascinating. You can spend a lot of time on it. So you've got, so your investigation, when you do investigate, you investigate all over. So give us some examples of some of the investigations that you've done and how they connect with some of the interesting stuff you brought today.
Well, in 2007, I started working with what's known as a ghost box, which for the purposes of this program is really just an altered radio. It allows the AM or FM band of the radio to sweep. And through that, it creates a mishmash of audio noise. And I brought one today just so you could hear the sound of it.
Cool.
And it's just noise. You're going to hear radio station snippets, white noise.
Maybe we can get someone to talk. Is anybody here?
So that's what it does, is it creates this noise. And we believe acts more like, by creating a carrier wave, it's able to bring the ghost voice or EVP through more regularly. And with working with this, you just use a simple audio recorder and you lay it down in front and you record it. And you ask questions and you listen. And sometimes you can hear the responses live. Other times you won't hear it until you go back and listen to your recording. And I found when I started working on this in 2007, experimenting, that I was recording some incredible messages. Now, it doesn't have to be a ghost that can come through. It can also be a spirit, an enlightened person, a person who's not earthbound on the other side. So I'd like to play one of those recordings because it's really the first one that rocked my world.
Oh, wow.
And it's a woman's voice. And at the time, my mindset was I was working on how to communicate with ghosts in order to help them. And if you listen to this audio, you're going to hear the earth, they need our word. So I'm going to play that a couple times.
Ooh.
One more time. It was then that and that was in my living room. There was nobody there but my dog, okay? So my dog doesn't speak that good of English. I knew it wasn't my dog. And I wasn't even trying to record ghost or spirit voices, but I kept recording encouraging messages like this. Mm-hmm. Over time, I began my journey going out into like mental hospitals, Maslin State, because I figured, I want to get to places where I know there are people with some minds that are fearful. So the next one is really just a compilation of help messages. In the book, I talk about the help message. If somebody's investigated ghosts long enough, they're going to start recording these through EVP. And it tells you that the mindset of the ghost is something that's fearful, and there's a majority of ghosts that want help. Some don't. A lot of them do. And so in this, you're going to hear, it starts out with Help Lewis. That was recorded at the Kent stage.
That's right.
And then you'll hear various help us messages, help me, help. So I'll play it a couple times because this is just a compilation of helps. Wrong one. Sorry about that.
Right. Well, we needed to hear that
Just
again.
live TV. I'm sorry. Here.
Help. Help, Lewis. Was somebody asking for help? Help. No. Nope.
I'll play it one more time. In the first part it says help Lewis, and then I repeat it because I heard it live. Help Lewis.
Help. Help, Lewis. Was somebody asking for help? Help. No. Nope.
Now, when we talk about the ghost mind, I want to just bring up an understanding for your audience. If we look at the near-death experience, and I talk about this in the book, There are three common things that are typically experienced in a near-death experience. The first one is they're greeted by loved ones, people in spirit that are benevolent, loving. It could be someone they knew, it could be a loved one, a friend, a family member, or somebody they don't know. But they're always there to seem to bring peace and comfort to help that person transition, which just means to move forward in the life journey and not stay stagnant or remain behind. The second experience is the light experience. And that's where people describe an intense light. It could be a tunnel, it could be just all around them, but they're engulfed or feel this light, see this light. And it's always a tremendous peace, a tremendous love like they've never felt before, and very inviting. And then the third thing that happens after the light experience is typically the life review. And what happens is the entire life lived on the earth is seen like in a split second. And it's a time of judgment of sorts. It's not judgment from an angry God, but what it is it's taking the things that we've experienced, the things that we can learn from, take those with us, and the baggage to get rid of, the fear to get rid of. It's a cleansing process. And that's what the ghost does not have. The ghost has not gone through that cleansing process, that light and cleansing process, so they remain behind. And what holds them here, the common thread that I talked about, is fear. Now you may think, well, my grandmother is here, with us at our house. Maybe somebody in the audience that has grandma, and they know she's a ghost, and she's not here because of fear. She's here because she cares about us. Well, I want to say that fear comes in many forms: doubt, worry, guilt, anger. Even care or concern is a subtle form of fear that will keep somebody focused on the past, focused on this realm, and not move forward and continue the life journey. So
interesting. Now, I find that really fascinating because I have had several people, working as a medium. They come in and there's a spirit right there with them, and they're saying, "Yeah, that's my, grandma," and she sits and watches TV with me every night, and I sometimes go, "Is this a spirit? Has a spirit crossed over or not?" I know that sometimes they don't feel earthbound, sometimes they do. That's very interesting that you'd say caring. So it'd be an attachment. You care about someone so much, you're going to be attached to them and not move it, cross over.
A person, a place, or thing. Attachment is just a person is fond of, a noun, a person, a place, or thing. There's something that's holding them here. Now, they could have fear of the future, too. It could be, they could be afraid of fear of facing grandma, or maybe somebody they wronged, or maybe afraid of being condemned to an eternal hell, or this type of thing, that they don't want to go into the light, they don't want to move forward. And some are aware of the light, some just don't want to go for whatever reason, and others aren't aware of the light and are looking for the light, or looking for help. So
yeah, I know what you're talking about, because I've encountered suicides that they're afraid that God's going to judge them, and they don't want to go into the light, and it takes time talking them into making that transition. So in your book, though, you give people examples on how to cross a ghost over. You want to give us a step-by-step or just a quick run through how to do that?
Well, before I jump into that, I want to play two more pieces of audio, because I think it's going to sort of cement it a little bit more on the mindset, because the short answer on how to help a ghost is compassionate communication, just like we would communicate with people here, and be empathetic and caring and listening and give wise advice or helpful advice. That's really what it is. That's really what it is. Most people that have ghosts and haunting don't take and want to recognize it. They don't want to recognize there's a ghost. They want to ignore the ghost. And so the haunting will kick up. You'll have more knocks, you'll have more weird occurrences, and then they become more frightened, and the ghost becomes more determined to try to get their attention, but they're ignoring the person.
Right.
So let me play this next audio. This one says, "Leave, son of a bee, leave." And it's important because I want you to hear this. This is intertwined within music. And with the ghost box, even though it can pick up radio frequencies, you would not hear these words on the radio. So play it again.
I heard that.
One more time.
Wow.
That was a haunting in Canton, Ohio, and this was an apartment, and the husband had died, or ex-husband had died, and they were, at the time, the wife and the husband were going through a divorce, and it was kind of a little bit of an ugly divorce, and the children saw him in the apartment. They saw the dad in the apartment, so the mother was convinced that he was trying to enact revenge. I mean, they were having all kinds of crazy things happen. Lights turning off, light bulbs popping,
Wow.
Stuff falling off the shelves that he had given to the ex-wife, like I think it was a teddy bear or a stuffed animal, just all kinds of weird things. And we worked to try to get him to leave. And you know, in the recordings I had, his recordings were very nice, but he didn't go. He wouldn't cross. And we finally figured out there was another man in the apartment who had lived in that apartment building, and he was not of good mind. And so I'm trying to make this recording, and my ghost box starts acting up. And that's when I recorded a couple things that were weird. And that was one of them, the please son of a bee leave. So in no unnecessary terms, he told me he wanted us out of there.
Yeah.
And the other recording I made was stop that music, because his presence, he was manipulating the electronics. I mean, the electronics were going haywire in the apartment wherever he was, and it was causing the radio to just stick on a frequency and play rock music. And I'm going, what's wrong with this? Why am I getting rock music? Stop that music! You know, I'm going. But that's an example. We had to get that ghost to cross before the father would go. And, this last one was recorded in Massillon Cemetery, and this would be from an enlightened spirit. And after we had crossed a number of ghosts, I asked, have they headed to the light? And you'll hear the answer, the light, yes.
Have they headed to the light? Yes.
That was that.
Have they headed to the light? Yes.
Now, see, I got the electronic frequency off of that, see, and I can feel that, and to me that was, wow.
Yeah, and these are really great to hear with headphones. Right now I'm blasting them through,
the
amplified speakers so you can hear them, but, we analyze the recordings with headphones, and, in the book I talk about sort of the do's and do nots, because we don't want stray radio fragments. We want relevant responses to our questions. I try not to ask a whole lot of yes or no questions. I want phrases or sentences that are relevant. So if I'm in a lighthouse and I ask about the keeper or Captain Babcock, which I talk in the book, I'm getting responses about the keeper and Captain Babcock.
Right, instead of random, just one word or bits.
Or yes or no or yeah.
Yeah. The Ghost Talk Box, always, that to me is an amazing piece of technology now, only because working as a psychic medium, I get the vibrations, or I get the feelings, or I hear clairaudiently, a response, and then this, a piece of technology actually backs me up, because it'll talk through there and say the same thing, and it's just, to me, that's amazing. I love that. And I don't know if I want to carry one around with me all the time, because then, I'd probably getting too freaked out too many times. It'd be like in the grocery store or something. I don't know. It'd be kind of fun, though. Go grocery shopping, have the Ghost Talk Box going. Yeah, it'd be fun. Just see who's around randomly. Tell us about the most interesting case that you've had.
Let me think here. I'll tell you about a case up in, it's a place where I've not been able to help because I did not have the opportunity at the time. But I want to encourage readers, if you want to go to a place, or listen, viewers, if you want to go to a place in Northeast Ohio that's haunted, I would go to Chef Fritz Roadhouse up in Fairport Harbor, Ohio.
Oh, Fairport is notorious.
That old bar where you can go in and eat or whatever has haunted history. It also used to be a house of ill repute, and men off ships used to come through there. But there are a lot of ghosts, and one night we went up there. Site of Ohio had a site night, and just a bunch of people went up, and we heard the stories from the owner, and the owner will be glad to tell you all the stories of the haunting and the ghosts, show you photographs that he has, and he has some good photographs. The first thing that happened to me when I was there was I snuck up the back stairs to where the prostitutes used to be, because I was just drawn there to record. And I started recording in the ghost box, and I heard some voices. And I came back down to get more people, and I'm standing down there, and all of a sudden I just feel like this breeze walk right through me. And Laura Lynn, who I believe was on your show, psychic medium from Akron, Ohio, she sees me from across the room. She goes, "Did you see that lady that just walked by you?" "No, but I felt her." That's where it started. So we went up the back steps, a bunch of us, and just allowed it to play. And I talk about it in the book, Helping Ghosts. We started getting a ton of responses, interactive. It was the most interactive, questions back and forth, people being touched. Why are you touching me? To be playful was a response, and just different things. It was an incredible, interactive night. So I would say that so that your audience could participate and go in there. That would be a great place. But
Have you done any investigations in the Medina County area at all?
I want to say yes.
Okay.
I'm not good at the geography of counties, but I know that I've done one or two up this way. A lot in the Canton area. I've been as far south recording voices and stuff as St. Augustine Lighthouse in Florida.
Oh, wow.
And East Gettysburg, PA.
Gettysburg, yeah.
But around here, primarily Akron, in Canton area. One haunting I'll tell you about was pretty interesting, because this people had this house, and they had their own residences. They were an older couple, and they found each other, and they bought this house. And their idea was to get rid of their other places and move in here, right? And so when they moved in there, all of a sudden they're having all this activity, all this stuff happen, this crazy stuff. Scratches, stuff knocked off whenever they're together, a pillow over the man's face, a shadowed form of a woman walking down the hall, and they were scared to death. And they went to their church and they said, "Can you come out here and get rid of these demons?" That's what they figured they had. And the church...
I would look at it. That's what I would conclude.
Their church said, no.
No, we don't
good
go
luck.
there, yeah.
That's when Site of Ohio got the call, right?
Yeah.
So we went out, and they showed us there were crosses painted above all the doors and windows on the outside. Before they bought the place, this was done. So they were convinced that this was something demonic. When we worked the case, we eventually figured out that it was a lady that had formerly owned the house, and she didn't want anybody living there. And she was mad as a hornet. And the root of her anger was actually her husband. And so I talk about that in the book. But we were able to get her to cross. When you're working with ghosts, if you can reunite them with a loved one who's crossed, that's the most powerful thing. And in this case, it was her mother. She didn't want to see her ex-husband, or her husband, who he wasn't an ex-husband. He had died, and then she found out some things about his infidelity. Let's call it that. So she was very bitter, but she was anxious to see her mom. And when she found out she could see her mom and be with her mom and still visit here, she was willing to move forward. And then the activity abated.
Wow.
The haunting was solved. So it wasn't demons. There are negative ghosts.
Yay. Now, what would you say with the calls you get, a majority, or is there a percentage that is just what we call residual energy? And then how many are really true hauntings? Do you encounter a lot more residual energy than true hauntings, or are you just, it's always a true haunting?
Well, I think residual haunting, for those in the audience to understand what a residual haunting is, that is just an imprint on the environment. Like if you go to Gettysburg, which I just mentioned, people still talk about hearing cannon fire at 3 o'clock in the morning. that would be, something not alive, non-living, but something imprinted on the environment, somehow within the energy. That's what a residual haunting is considered, the energy of life that just is still taking place, playing over and over. But I would propose, too, that some things that are considered residual haunting, such as a ghost that is non-interactive with the living, might be somebody who's in trauma. It might not be that it's residual. It could be somebody that's in such emotional trauma, such an emotional state that they're unable to even interact with this realm.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That would make sense. Interesting. Now you have some photographs here too.
Sure.
And I think these are, we can pick those up with the camera as well. You want to explain some of the photographs you brought?
Yes, I just brought a few. Right now, angelsghost.com has about 4,500 pages of information on it.
Yeah, it's a lot of
There's a
stuff
lot.
to go through.
So I brought a few photos, and believe me,
Angels and Ghosts.
it's called Angels and Ghosts, but
Ghost.com, yeah.
angelsghost.com is the website for it.
Angel Ghost.
And the book website is helpingghosts.com. Okay, this was taken at Perkins Mansion. The story behind this photograph, over a year ago, they took photos of the inside of it. In case they ever needed them for promotional brochures or materials. They pulled them out a couple months before Halloween, and were looking at them on the computer to use them within inserts on flyers, etc. And what they found, when they look at the top here, and I have it kind of highlighted, there are feet in like a dress coming down the stairs. So they found this photograph in their collection of digital photos almost a year after they took it.
Yeah, you can see the feet. Yeah.
In Perkins Mansion is in Akron, Ohio. So that's the first one.
Hello. Here, let me
Okay.
want to see. Oh, wow.
This one, if you go to Charleston, South Carolina, is in St. Philip's Cemetery. And there's a story about the turn of the century, early 1900s. A lady had died a few days after giving birth to a stillborn baby. And this is her gravesite, and people believe that she's crying over, they were buried together, over her child, over her baby. And this was taken by a doctor well over a decade ago. So I'll show that to you as well.
Holy moly. Wow.
Oh, it's going to get better. Just wait a second.
Jeez, hopefully we'll get more of a close-up on that for everyone. We'll pass these out to the audience when we're done here. So,
this photo is of an energy. I think it's the beginning of an apparition forming on some stairs. This is at Mansfield Reformatory. It was taken by Dale Lute of Site of Ohio, and he was using. I also make full spectrum cameras. I take cameras apart and alter them to be able to see in the dark with infrared lighting, and you don't use the flash, so you don't get false anomalies. And when he was down at Mansfield Reformatory down in in Mansfield, he was seeing things move through the viewfinder, and this is one of them that he caught, and it's a fantastic photo.
wow.
Now, this photograph was taken by a friend of mine, Craig Rupp, and this is taken at Gettysburg. Craig lives not too far away from there. And on the top, a little round top, there is a statue. And this is sunlight coming down the statue. And he uses an infrared film camera, or digital camera, I believe. And he has a process where he uses... he takes a series of 3 photographs with that infrared camera on a tripod. And because he doesn't want to have a false anomaly, he has what he calls a spotter stand there and make sure nobody gets in front of the camera.
Okay.
And what Craig found is by taking 3 photographs, that camera's on the tripod, he can go through them digitally real quick, and if there's any difference in them, he'll see it. Well, he noticed a difference in this photo. And if you look here, there's a man in period dress standing on Little Round Top, which overlooks the battlefield. Now what's really cool is Craig went and took and had another photograph where he had somebody stand there, and they noticed that the guy was standing much taller when they tried to reproduce this photo, and that's because they poured a base of concrete there and for tourism. So this guy here is standing on the original ground.
Wow.
His legs are actually going down into the cement.
Oh my gosh. And I can see the man right there. You can see the figure.
It's a very distinct. That's probably one of the best photos.
That is.
And then I have this one
Wow.
though. This one's a mind-blowing one. This photograph here was taken by Peter Canellis out of New York. And Peter was called on an investigation. His team was called to investigate this home because the people have a desk and they kept hearing like a disturbance there, typing and stuff. And so Peter put a trail cam, a game camera. It's something you put out in the woods and you tie it to a tree, and if there's any movement it goes off and takes pictures and you can see what wildlife are there. Well, he put one in the house across from this desk. I just hit my microphone. That's what that was. It wasn't a ghost. And so Peter has this camera going off and is unaware of it while he's setting up. And so what you have in this photo is you have a desk here which is against the wall. So if you were to sit at this desk, you would be facing the wall. But the game camera caught this woman sitting at the desk facing this way. And if you look close, you can see the desk cutting her body off. It gets better. Peter Canellis was unaware of this going on. He goes and he steps in front of the game camera and puts the audio recorder down to try to record the typing noise. And here she is vanishing in the next photo.
Oh, that is amazing.
Is that wild or what?
Yeah. There's the ghost. And then there's him.
And there she is right there.
Yeah. Well, we'll pass these around for sure, but that's wow. And your site has hundreds of these or
Tons.
tons of these.
Every month I post new photographs that are sent in, and there's just a phenomenal amount.
Wow. That's pretty amazing.
Thank you.
To catch things on film, that's again getting scientific, through film and through voice, electronic voice, and the talk box that you're getting evidence that there is life after we leave this body, and then we get evidence that life continues.
Absolutely.
And then you're doing the work, you're rescuing or sending them on, so to speak. So you clear up hauntings for sure. I mean, when you're done investigating, 9 times out of 10, you're going to say the place is clean, right?
Yeah, that's the goal. I mean, some ghosts are very difficult to get to leave. I mean, some ghosts are very easy. They just need, in getting back to your question a while ago, how can we help them? The first thing, if you have a haunting or you're a ghost investigator, you need to overcome your own fear. You can't help somebody that's fearful if you're afraid as well.
Right.
So you work on your own fear first. The second thing I tell people is that if you have a haunting, acknowledge the ghost. Don't ignore the ghost. Some people believe that if they acknowledge the ghost, the activity is going to stir up. It's usually just the opposite. If you ignore the ghost is going to try to get your attention. And so that person is going to be more desperate, especially if they're wanting your help or they want to get a message across. In the book, Helping Ghosts, I do talk about 3 ways to try to communicate. The first way is to record EVP, which is electronic voice phenomena, meaning disembodied spirit voices. You just simply can buy a cheap audio recorder at like Radio Shack for about $30. You can sit it down, if you have a haunting, sit it down in there and ask questions, or you can just let it record, upload it to a computer, amplify it, listen, see if you have any responses or any messages. That's one way you can possibly find out what's going on. Another way is to find an altered radio called a ghost box. I have them on my website. If you Google ghost box, you're going to find out all kinds of information, how you can make one or buy one. There's some commercial models even, and that enhances the EVP collection. Some people record EVP with fan noise, running water, white noise. A ghost box is no different. It just uses a different way of doing it.
What do you think of those iPod apps? There's one for ghost communication now. Do you think that's valid, or is that kind of just maybe a toy, like a, an 8-ball?
I mean, some people say they're getting some results from them.
Okay.
So I can't really, say it's impossible. I think that, the biggest thing we can do is find what works for us. And that's why I talk about meditation as the third thing.
Okay.
Because if we can learn to quiet our mind and follow our gut, if you want to call that, the inner voice, if you want to call that God, if you want to call that spirit, if you want to call that the Force for Star Wars fans, I don't care. Quiet your mind and listen. What are you feeling? What's your gut read? And go with your gut. If you get the impression that you need to say this, say this. I was recently talking to Rob Demarest from Ghost Hunters International.
Oh.
And Rob says to me, he comes up and he wants my book, right? I was at a trade show. And he goes, we're out there and we're investigating. And he goes, when you investigate long enough, you know that ghosts are out there and you know that they need help. And he says, we're in the Philippines, we're investigating. And we're getting messages, we're getting EVP that they want help. So afterwards, we're talking, after the cameras are shut down, we're going, how can we help them? And he goes, I didn't know what to do. He goes, the only thing I knew to say was, the war's over. Because I knew these were ghosts from World War II. So he turned on his recorder and he said, the war's over. And when he played his recorder back, he found the response, but who won?
Wow.
It was just we have to work. We have to listen. We have to go with our gut.
And then he bought this book and he said, oh, now I know what to do. Hello?
I gave him a couple.
Very good, because that's been one of my pet peeves is that these people go in and say, oh, yeah, your house is haunted or your place is haunted, see ya.
Yeah.
And then the owner goes, oh, okay. And then what do we do now?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's amazing. So that is a fantastic story.
Thank you.
Great. So we talk to them and we tell them, help them out.
Yeah. We acknowledge them, and I like to tell them that there's nothing to fear, and that explaining to them whether they know it or not, whether they know it or not, that their body has died, but they're all right because they're eternal spirit. And, we're part of this one energy, God, if you will, or, the divine spirit, or, the source of life. Yeah. And that's how we find our existence. So because the body's gone doesn't mean that we're gone. The real you is spirit. Right. And so I try to convey that and remove the fear and, tell them that they're forgiven, that they're loved, that they're important, that there is no condemnation, that they need to forgive themselves potentially, that they can be reunited with loved ones and move forward in the life journey and continue to learn, continue to love and be loved and share and grow and move forward. And by trying to make an emotional connection, when you hit on the core fear, you'll find that they will be responsive. You'll find that you'll know. And one thing I would encourage the audience and those that are listening to this is that when I recorded a lot of messages, I found that people who have crossed over into the light are trying to help ghosts. They're trying to help people who are lost. And I've recorded them communicating back and forth. I played one, the light, yes. Have they headed to the light? The light, yes. They're there to help us, to try to bridge the gap. You may think, well, why don't they just help the ghost? Well, oftentimes the ghost might tune them out or might be afraid of them because their focus is on this realm.
Right.
Their focus is not on the next or just moving forward. So.
Wow. And so if someone does have a haunting, not to be afraid. Acknowledge the ghost and follow some simple steps. Talk to the ghost.
Talk to the ghost.
Help them cross over. Call in. You have some other steps. Call in the maybe some guardian spirits to send them, or relatives of the ghost, or.
Well, when I get to the end of it, I do talk about telling them that their loved ones are here in spirit, and I often ask them to think about a loved one that they know who's gone on before them that they wish to see more than anyone. And I tell them that they're there right now, whether they know it or not. And we can create that light. We can help them open up to that light. That light is within everybody. That truth and that healing is within everybody, but we wall it out. We wall it out with darkness, which is just an allegory for a lack of understanding, a lack of knowing. And so that's what fear is darkness. If we can remove that fear, there's the light, and then they can transition. You piece together the haunting with trying to get communication, whether it be EVP or ghost box or meditation, following your gut, and speak forth and work it until they go. Now, I want to tell your audience that when a ghost crosses, there's something that I talk about in the book called the release. You can actually feel a tangible change in the atmosphere. People where we've investigated their haunting and helped get the ghosts to move forward, they could feel it too. And that release is felt like a love, a peace, a joy.
Wow.
And it changes the atmosphere of the room and changes the people that experience it.
Wow. So we're now going to go ahead and we're going to have our studio audience ask you questions about everything. So
wonderful.
Be ready. All right. Well, now we're in the studio audience, and we're going to have our audience, lovely audience here, ask some questions of Lewis. So you have a question.
Actually, I have two.
Okay.
One is, what is your most humorous encounter that you've ever had with a ghost spirit or whatever you want to call it? And the other one is, what is your criteria for picking who you go or the place that you go to investigate?
Okay, I think probably the most humorous was, and I alluded to up at Chef Fritz, it was such a great experience, but the female participants in the group were being touched inappropriately by a male ghost. And one of the ladies called him out, called this ghost out, and, why do you have to be such a... And his response was, I'm just being playful. And to me, that was just typical barroom behavior. So that was funny to me. And, the ladies all had a good chuckle with it, too. So, and he stopped, when he was called out. So, working with different ghost investigation groups over the years, I try to get called in on some of the more active cases, and then I would participate primarily with Sight of Ohio on real active cases that we had to solve, and worked with psychic medium Laura Lynn and other psychics too to try to have a balance and discern what was going on within those environments. So probably the urgency is where I went, and I feel my message or my role is more of a communicator, trying to get this message out there to ghost investigators, and also trying to get this message out there for people who are looking to help or who need help undergoing a haunting. So,
All right.
Thanks for your question.
Okay, somebody else have a question? Yeah. Okay, all right.
No, I forgot. But no. When you go out, do you use dowsing rods or pendulums for finding them? Or do you also sense ghosts?
Well, for me, I personally don't use them, but I've been with ghost investigators, typically psychic mediums who do. And again, I think you need to find out what works for you. For me, what works for me, when I go into a haunting, I try to work it like a puzzle. First of all, I'm going to interview everybody who's had an encounter, whether it be visually or they've heard something or they've had a feeling. Then I try to technically investigate it, try to get some recordings, maybe some photos or videos, see what we can capture. And then I also follow my gut. And when I go throughout a house that's haunted, I try to just follow where I'm led, where I'm drawn to. And, I'll try to shut my mind down at different points and just listen what I'm hearing inside. And that's how I work it. And at the end, you should have pieces of a puzzle that sort of give you a blueprint of what to do next, and then just follow your gut.
Do you also, when you send someone through to the light, you don't sense it or feel it when the spirit is moving on or the ghost is moving on, do you?
I do, and I think it's different for different people. And I talk about in the book a method of doing that, and it's basically having the ghost, the person, visualize the light or the sun rising up on their back, but I can also do it myself by just having them. Sometimes I have them just hug me. I just hug me, and I'll just feel the presence, the light just well up in me, because that light's within everybody, and just explode, for lack of a better word, just gush forth, and they'll transition that way. Ghosts have, as I mentioned, have different personalities. So I want to take this fear away for those that are listening to this or watching this. The negative spirits that we ran into, the negative ghosts, were very few when compared to the overall cases of haunting. Most people were middle of the road. They're not negative behavior, but there are ghosts out there that are negative, that will lie and do things to manipulate the living through fear and get a rise out of it. They know their body died. They know they're considered a ghost. They know about the light. They don't want to go forward, and they like messing with people. There's a very few that are out there, they will do that. But there's people like that now. I mean, you can go out in the street here and you can find a couple bad eggs, They like messing with people. So, the big thing is, that's what I always say, when you fear, you hand control over to somebody else. And with ghost investigation or trying to solve a haunting or communicate, no matter what method you use, if you're fearful, you're handing control over potentially to somebody that will take advantage of that.
Thank you.
Yep, same way at work, school, the mall,
All right.
Denny's restaurant,
Okay. So
No,
we got
I'm
another
kidding.
question. Oh, well, we'll go to the front here. And
Is it hard to understand through the radio when you upload it to your computer?
Sometimes it can be. You have to learn to not turn the ghost box up too loud, because otherwise you'll blast your recording out and it'll be a lot of so, just learning to get the volume set right, learning to, have a good pair of headphones and work with the audio player or audio analysis software. Might be a little bit of a challenge, but it's not very difficult. You can get used to it. The more you do something, the better at it you become. So.
okay, thank you. Got somebody down here.
You spoke about the people who have already crossed over into the light coming back to visit.
Sure.
You think that they can do that?
I
at
know
any
they can
time
do
that they
that.
want? Yes.
Yes,
Yeah?
they can do
They
that.
can come back and visit family and look in on them, so they don't have to be
Absolutely.
afraid to go to the light. That they'll be able to come back.
Yeah, once they go through that cleansing process, I think that I don't think we understand how many enlightened spirits are with us.
I feel they're all around.
Yeah, and they may be just observing. They may be communicating with us. They may be learning from us as well. Sometimes we think that we can only hear a message from them. Sometimes they may bring a message, but maybe they might be learning from us as well.
Any other questions? We got a lady right here.
Why wouldn't these spirits help the ghosts that are stuck here?
I think they try. In fact, I know they try. Sometimes they may be able to, but what we found is that the ghosts might wall them out, not want to, maybe ignore them, might be afraid of them, might not want to listen to something. You kind of have to put yourself in their shoes. And let me give you an example. When I had an out-of-body experience, I was all of a sudden out of my body, and I'm awake, and my body's over there, and I can't get back to it. I'm immediately frightened. I'm thinking about all the things I didn't get to do. I've got young kids. I thought I had died. So I'm thinking, I've got young kids, I didn't get to do this, I don't want to die, I'm too young to die, I didn't get to say goodbye to my family, blah, blah, blah. Fear set in. That's the mindset of a ghost. It can be full of fear. And so you can imagine where my mind would have been, at least I can, had I seen somebody in spirit. Had I seen somebody else there, I probably would have flipped out at that point in my life because I wouldn't have been prepared to handle it. And I think that's kind of what you have in some cases. You have a barrier. It's the mind that walls it out, or fear.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have one.
Okay.
What exactly is the light when you send people to the light?
I think the light is a term we use. I'm going to take it back biblically, because to me, I like the message that Jesus, Yeshua, talked about with the light. He talked about the kingdom of God being within you. He talked about, don't let your light be covered over with darkness. The light is really love, joy, peace. It's who you really are, who we are collectively. It's that energy, that loving energy that empowers, that energizes all that really is. But darkness is the allegory, and these are allegories. That's what they are biblically. Darkness is the allegory for a lack of understanding, a lack of comprehension, or ignorance. Just meaning we don't get it yet. Get it, man! Do you get it? And it's fear, and so I think that's what he's talking about, is not allowing that darkness, not allowing that fear, those beliefs, those misconceptions, misunderstandings to shut out your light, to cover it over. Use the analogy of a basket covering your light, your lamp. And the light can never be put out because it's who you really are. But we believe that this body and that this is who I am. Well, you're an eternal spirit, and that's what we have to get to, the comprehension of that. I hope that answers it. Kind of, maybe.
Kind of.
You may call it heaven. You may call it, God. You may, it's a label. We label everything and try to define our world.
Yeah. Anybody else? No more questions? All right. Well, I guess we have finished our question and answer session, and we'll go back and thank LewisCharles in a minute. Well, Lewis, thank you so much for being here today on my show and sharing with us Helping Ghosts and your insights and your knowledge to a guide to understanding lost spirits. I think that's really profound. And thank you for sharing some of your investigation work and some of the electronic voice and the ghost box and all that, and your pictures. It's been wonderful. And I think you've answered quite a few questions about hauntings, ghosts, investigations, and what to do. So you have a website, and again, it's called?
Well, there's angelsghosts.com. That's where the photos and evidence and stories are at. And then for the book, helpingghosts.com. You can get more information about that.
All right, great. Well, we encourage people to get rid of the fear, right? Let
That's
go
right.
of fear and trust and move and stay in the present moment, and that'll help you move on and forward in your life or our lives, right?
Absolutely.
Well, thanks again, and
Thank you.
welcome. Well, we'll have you back on again. I think that there's more stories and more things that we can definitely investigate here in the studio.
Sounds great.
So thanks again.
Thank you.